Oh, no, they were great.
Gavel the meeting to order, please. So you all can get some of the dinner of champions. Have a seat.
I'll sit. They're not mine.
Welcome to the November 21st meeting, Collin County Republican Men's Club. Let's start off with our salutes to the things that are most dear to us. Richard, would you do the U.S. flag salute?
Oh, y'all please join me and stand. Again, let's give us praise and thanksgiving for our Lord and our freedom. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Richard. And the Texas flag salute, Randy, would you lead us in that?
Would you join me in saluting our flag?
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Valera, would you lead us in the invocation?
Let's bow our heads before the Lord. Lord, for this evening, this season, Lord, there's many of us Republicans that are pretty happy with the outcome of the election. And Lord, as tonight and as the coming months progress, Lord, we ask that you keep us focused on what you would have for our country and the actions that you would have us take in making the path of our country righteous once again, Lord. Lord, we ask this blessing in Jesus' wonderful and precious name. Amen.
Amen.
As we all know, CCRMC is where men and women join together, learn together, and work together for the Republican Party by promoting our goals and principles. We're most noted for our monthly keynote speakers, and tonight is no different. We'll be hearing from Congressman Keith Self. He'll be speaking on where do we go from here, a post-election perspective, which is a great subject whether Republicans had a good November 5th or not. But we did have a good one. But first, some club and political business and announcements. I'd like to recognize any guests, new members. I'd like to stand.
If you're a guest, raise your hand.
I'm a guest.
I appreciate it. Thank you all for being
Thank you for being here.
We're going to make them introduce themselves. We all know who they are.
If you would like to stand and introduce yourself. You asked for it.
I'm a new member.
Uh,
All right, Tim, yes. Good job, Tim.
About time.
A quick note about our membership. As Republicans, we like transparency. So, with that in mind, we expect a small hike. We're considering a small hike in our membership dues in the coming year. We have not changed our membership dues price in 20 years. What a deal. So we are assessing what we need to have to continue our headquarter meeting rental, our sought-after door prize, of course, could be worth $1 million someday. Web and media presence, and support for special events like our Plano 4th of July parade and our Christmas party. We aren't a profit-making venture, so we live by your generous membership fees. Please renew for the next year before the price increase takes place, sometime at the beginning of 2025. A little marketing there, so do it now before the price goes up. Our usual thanks to President-elect Jeffrey Miller for providing the Dinner of Champions. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just so you don't scare away any of our guests tonight with this enormous membership fee, you might tell us what the actual annual fee is currently and what it may be going to.
Certainly. So our membership fee, the first year is $30. The follow-up years are $25. We have an associate that's available at $15 a year for a spouse. As I said, we have the cost of, on the Plano parade, we buy flags and hand those out to all the people that are at the parade. We rent this place for our monthly meetings. Wish Tim McCord was here to remember the other additional costs. But anyway, we feel like it's certainly worth it for the education that you get and the camaraderie that we get from this club. So we hope you feel that it's worth it.
And it's going up to?
We don't know yet. To be determined, but probably not huge. Next, I wanted to open the floor for nominations to our board for the coming year of 2025. I'd like to announce our board positions and the current office holders. So please stand when I call your name, and the trustees. President-elect J.J. Miller, Secretary Wendell Brock. He's not here. Treasurer Tim McCord, not here. VP of Programs Mark Myers. VP of Membership Charles Cervello. Assistant VP Membership Masood Safi, who's incredibly handy behind the keyboard too. VP of Technology Delar Height. Assistant VP Technology Bobby Tillman. Sergeant at Arms Steve Callis, and myself Eric Nowak. I'd like to nominate an assistant Sergeant at Arms Mickey Bennett. Want to stand? Mickey's been coming to our meetings, regular voter. Are there any nominations from the floor for these positions? No floor fight. Okay. Seeing there are none, we'll ask for the election by acclamation. So I'd like to close nominations by asking for a motion from the floor to retain our current slate of officers. John Myers.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we, by acclamation, approve all of the aforementioned officers.
Spoken like the professional speaker you are. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
Election of our officers for the year 2025 is confirmed. Thank you very much. Some other upcoming announcements quickly. We are working on a new website to be deployed soon. Stay tuned. Our annual CCRMC Christmas party will take place this December, I think I've got that right, 19th. We are planning on having the party here unless another venue is available, but I think we've decided it's going to be here. Look for an email announcement and we'll have a great time as we always do. There will be right now we are scheduled to have a mystery comedian show up, and the big guy, Santa Claus himself, usually makes an appearance each time to answer your questions about modern society. So he'll fly on in, give us some Christmas cheer, and he'll snarkily answer your questions. So, yes. Oh, sorry. I skipped the trustees. He asked for a vote of acclamation for Delar Height, who just dropped the lights for me. Richard Dodson. Robbie Jane, who's absent. Mark Rutledge, and John Myers.
I move that we approve the slate of trustees.
I second. Thank you very much. And thank you for correcting me. So on November 5th, the people spoke, or should I say they danced and sang to the tune of YMCA. Ann Coulter, whom I follow on media, has said Democrats lose office for the things they do, and Republicans lose office for the things that they don't do. I think that's probably true overall sometimes. As Shelby Williams, our CCGOP chair, likes to say, it's the math that counts in politics, so please allow me to rattle off some interesting statistics after the wildest election season that I've ever seen, and maybe that's the same for you. How many expected the landslide that we got, or the overall Republican win? Raise your hand if you expected it. A few. My wife, who makes good predictions, and she's usually right. How many did not think it was going to happen? Yeah. In Collin County, Carissa Richardson, Matt Shaheen, Jeff Leach, and Candy Noble all won their state representative seats handily, as did Scott Grigg as Collin County's tax assessor collector. Did I miss any other important local races? Statewide, Republicans picked up 2 new Texas House seats and a Senate seat, so there are a total of 26 freshman Republican lawmakers going to the House and 2 in the Senate. The GOP won 25, I thought this was interesting, 25 of 26 contested courts of appeals races. Also from the Texas scorecard, this really blew me away. The 5th Court of Appeals in Dallas went from a 12-1 Democrat majority to an 8-5 Republican majority. The GOP won all 3 Texas Supreme Court seats for election. Nationally, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance were elected President and Vice President of the United States. Republicans took the majority in the U.S. Senate and retained the majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, unless some states counting illegally until their favorite candidates win, which is, I think, happening right now in Philadelphia. Sure, you've seen at least some political statistics as Democrats and Republicans try to figure out what happened. But if you haven't had enough of that, take a look at these stats, courtesy of my son Michael, who picked this stuff up. So on this slide, Mitt Romney 2012, Donald Trump 2016, and Donald Trump 2020. You can see how the margin's going down in this circled area. These counties, you can see we're getting worse and worse and worse. Now, if you go to the next slide, we've really reversed and gone back to 13.83 compared to 15.79, which was Mitt Romney, which I think this is pretty fantastic. And you can tell we've really turned around our local counties. Dallas County voting turnout was way down from 2020. Kamala Harris won Harris County by just 5 points, very small. Next slide. So from 2020 to 2024, the county swings, these dark red patches swung 15 points, shifting to Trump between those 2 elections. And these counties flipped to Trump. There are 10 of them that flipped to Trump from Biden relative to 2020. Next slide. Some say that demographics are destiny, so is that true? Racial breakdown, percentage voting for Trump, white Europeans, 65, Hispanic, 55, Asian Americans, 58, African Americans, 13. But still, I believe that's continuing to go higher for African Americans here. Next slide. So again, this is all in Texas. So the gender breakdown, overall men in Texas 61%, overall women 49%. Then if you split demographically with men and women, 70-60. Black men 21%, women 8%, Hispanic 64 and 43. Overall, a pretty good move across demographics in representing in Texas for supporting Republicans. I'm sorry, supporting presidential. Next slide. So these are other noteworthy statistics. First-time voters were 80% going for Trump. This is according to CNN as of 11/15. The stats are a little updated. So this may be a little bit different. They're from CNN. Hope it's trustworthy. We'll see. White Christians 85%, 18 to 29, 49%. White college educated, non-white college educated, all very strong numbers, almost 50% or over 50%. Suburban voters, 59%. Suburban voters were supposed to be the ones that were pushing Democrat, but in Texas, that's not really the case. And I mentioned the 10 counties that flipped. Almost entirely majority Hispanic, Southwest Texas. That's where the majority of it was along the border.
The border crisis is.
Yeah. Next slide. So our county statistics, voter turnout was actually down, even though registered voters added were about 100,000. And of course, presidential race was Donald Trump, 54% to 44% over Kamala Harris. So 10%, pretty good. Ted Cruz, 52% over 46%. He only beat Robert Beto O'Rourke by 3%, I believe, last time. So this is a substantial move. A big wave is happening, it appears. Okay, last slide. Last but not least, District 3 U.S. Representative Keith Self, 61 to 39. Congrats, Keith. So the people have spoken, and now the real fireworks start. Thanks to everyone in this room and that ever views this video for the work that you put in to remind people that people's government still belongs to the people. Now, I just want to introduce VP of Programming, Mark Myers, who will introduce this evening's speaker.
And may I make we have a very distinguished guest here this evening that has served our club from the beginning, served in our legislature for how many years, Jerry?
He's here.
No, Jerry, you were the president of this club in 1988, 89?
No, it was 83 and 73.
Okay, let's stand up so everybody sees Jerry. All right.
Thank you. At the outset, I would like to say that when I invited Congressman Keith Self to be our speaker this evening, it was in the latter part of October. The election had not occurred. I called him and I said, Mr. Congressman, how would you like to be our speaker, and how would you like to speak on your post-election perspective and where do we go from here? Not knowing who was going to be the president, among other races. So I imagine at the outset that the talk that we would have heard tonight had Kamala Harris been elected president might be somewhat different than the talk we will hear this evening. For those of you who don't know Keith or don't know a lot about him, Keith was born in a military hospital while his father was serving in the U.S. military. The family later settled in Texas, where both sides of Keith's family have been Texans for 5 generations. Keith graduated from Amarillo High School, then West Point. After graduating, Keith's military career assignments included Europe, the Middle East, and the Pentagon. Keith served as an infantry platoon leader, a Special Forces detachment commander, a company commander, and as executive officer to a major general in Egypt, with staff assignments in the U.S. European Command and later at NATO military headquarters in Belgium. During Keith's career, he received the Master Parachutist Badge and the Special Forces tab. I don't know how many of you know how much it takes to qualify for both the Master Parachutist Badge and the Special Forces tab, but when I was a teenager, and please excuse my French, me and my friends would refer to someone like that as a real badass. Not someone that you would want to mess with. So, and before I forget, Keith's wife and #1 supporter is Tracy. Tracy, wave at everybody. So Keith, the military man, met Tracy at a Young Life Christian Fellowship group. And their Christian faith has served as the foundation of Keith's principles and decision-making for his entire life. After approximately 25 years, Keith retired from the military as a lieutenant colonel, and in 2006 was elected Collin County judge, serving for 3 terms or 12 years until 2018. During Keith's 3 terms, serving as county judge, responsible for overseeing all the aspects of Collin County, he actually reduced the Collin County tax rates by 25% and took on such tough issues as addressing the Collin County pension plans by reforming them so they remained viable while simultaneously saving taxpayers millions of dollars. Keith remains extremely active and earlier this year parachuted solo in the 50-year anniversary recreation of the D-Day landing in Normandy. That's my definition of Texas tough. Keith was recently re-elected to the U.S. Congress representing Congressional District 3, increasing his 2022 victory margin by several percentage points and by approximately 30,000 votes. In short, Keith is the man we need representing us at this critical time at the crossroads of American history. The election is behind us, but the new fight is just beginning. So here to provide us with his perspective on where we go from here is our Congressman Keith Self.
First of all, let's start with the important thing. Army is 9-0, and we're playing Notre Dame on Saturday.
I'm going to ask you the toughest question. Are you going to be at Yankee Stadium on Saturday?
I'm sorry, I am not, Jerry. Now, Jerry is also a graduate of West Point, 10 years ahead of me. So yes, so we're having a great year.
And I've got the hair.
I'm not sure what that proves. And I have to tell you, since you're having McDonald's tonight, one of the greatest memes recently is Trump standing there at the fryer, talking to a McDonald's employee, saying, "Well, this'll be my last shift. I got my old job back." First thing about this election is, if you have not, bow your head and thank God for His grace. We have an opportunity that is very rare, very rare. When you think back to 2009, when a man named Obama took office, between 2009 and today, at the end of 2024, think about what's happened in the world, in our nation. We have a rare opportunity. I will tell you, the counting's not over, folks. In fact, right now, we have 3 House races that have not been called. And I suspect that when all of them are called, we are going to have a 220 to 215 margin in the House. Now that sounds like 5, but it's not. You lose 2 votes and they win. It is literally a 2-vote majority. That's about as close as you can get. And I think that's what it's going to be. But we do have the trifecta that we were hoping for. And I tell you, Trump is wielding a big stick with his nominees, and we'll get to that. But I will tell you, first of all, the Senate with 53, now they still have the filibuster that requires 60 votes. But for confirmations and common sense bills, I think we've got a huge advantage this time because the 53, I think we can easily confirm anybody that is even a reasonable nominee, whether it be on the Supreme Court or in the executive branch, whatever. I think it's going to be much easier to confirm. The House, with a 2-seat majority, folks, it's going to be tough in the House. Now, I said last time, my first term, that a narrow majority, and I think we started out with a 5 or 6-seat majority, was God's gift to conservatism. Because if the Speaker of the House, regardless of who it is, and at the time it was Kevin McCarthy, if Kevin McCarthy had had a tremendous seat count, he wouldn't have needed to listen to us conservatives. He wouldn't have needed us. He could have passed whatever he needed, whatever he wanted, without our votes. And that's going to be the case this time with a 2-seat majority. Now, I will tell you, Trump's got to be real careful about taking all these nominees out of the House. Because if we have a 2-seat majority and he takes 2 people out, he has basically stripped Mike Johnson, or the speaker, whoever the speaker is, he stripped him of his majority. And they've got a plan, we've talked to them about it, they've got a plan to take a few out, get them confirmed, take a few more out. Byron Donalds, for instance, is going to go into the administration. Ronnie Jackson out of Texas is going to go into the administration. But he's got to do that with a plan, because you can't take too many out at one time. Because remember, governors cannot appoint to the House. Some governors can appoint to the Senate. No governor can appoint to the House. You have to have a special election, which means you've got several weeks. As fast as you can move, you've got several weeks where you might be down a seat. So that is going to be that's going to be critical for the president not to ruin the majority in the House, because he's going to need us. I will tell you, let's go to President Trump. He learned a lot from his first term. He learned an awful lot. If you think back, no one expected him to win in 2016. No one. So they wasted it. I mean, the old timers in the House tell me they wasted 4 months before they got any traction whatsoever. Because they weren't planning to appoint anybody. They weren't planning to nominate anybody. They had no plan other than try to win the election. So when they won the election, they were kind of like the dog that caught the car. What do I do now? Well, I guarantee you that is not going to happen this year. In fact, it's already moving. They've got several organizations that are doing personnel for them. They've got several organizations that are doing policy for them. And I was told by Stephen Moore a couple of days ago, they have, and Stephen Moore is not given to exaggeration. He said they have 200 executive orders ready to sign. If he does, 94 of them, in my opinion, ought to be the 94 executive orders that Biden signed within the first few months on the border. And I tell you, I want those to be the first 94. The House. I think Mike Johnson will be the Speaker of the House. He's Trump's guy. Trump came to the House, one of our meetings, and basically said, Mike Johnson's our guy, is my guy, okay? So he's going to be Speaker of the House. Regardless of what you think about Mike Johnson, his performance, he's got a tough job, guys. I sit in what, R13, R12, R13 district. Some of these guys don't. And he's got to bring all of us along if he wants to pass anything. But I will tell you the difference this time between the last time with Biden and Schumer in the House, in the presidency and the Senate, Trump at the head of this thing this time will make all the difference in the world. Because Trump will not yield anything to the House members that want to vote against it. I think he will call them out. I think we will have a much, much stronger House, even with a 2-member majority. The Senate, we've already talked about that. Now let's get to the interesting stuff. Y'all want to know about the nominees, right? I will tell you, the pushback has already started. I wish you could have heard Steve Bannon last night. Does everybody know who Steve Bannon is?
Oh, yeah.
Steve Bannon last night at the CPI dinner was on warpath mode. It was vintage Steve Bannon. Stood up and said, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we are at war today. He talked about the moral imperative of bringing our republic back. He talked about the 5 horsemen of the apocalypse, the nominees, the 5 horsemen. Now, Gates is withdrawn today, so I guess we're down to 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
That sounds like an Army Notre Dame football game.
But Bannon was in full throat last night, and that's exactly where we have to be, because we know, look at what Biden's already doing, folks. He's trying to get the student loans done again. He's trying to get aid to Ukraine done right now. He's trying to put in place some border issues, knowing that Trump's going to overturn them day one. But they are doing everything they can to lock in, to tie Trump's hands, at least in the first year. I'll get to funding later, but they're also going to try to tie his hands on funding. So let's go down some of the big ones. Obviously, Matt Gaetz withdrew today. If you haven't heard, Matt Gaetz withdrew today, and he promptly nominated Pam Bondi, the Florida AG. She's got a long history with Trump. They know each other. He respects her. He likes her. And I think she'll do a fine job. She is a strong woman. Remember, who was it that said that there are no strong conservative women?
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban, yeah, how can I forget? Well, let me tell you, Pam Bondi is a strong conservative woman. Marco Rubio, regardless of what you think about his politics, he is a China hawk. And frankly, a China hawk is probably who we need in that position today. Pete Hegseth, whether he will be confirmed, I think he will be. I think he will be confirmed in defense. Doug Burgum, Interior, fine. Howard Lutnick in Commerce, fine. Robert Kennedy, Health and Human Services. That one is one of the head scratchers. That's one of the horsemen of the apocalypse. But he does, that will be interesting. I'll leave it at that. Doug Collins in VA, that's fine. He's a former congressman. Kristi Noem in Homeland Security, the governor. John Ratcliffe, our own John Ratcliffe from here from North Texas, as the CIA director. I think John wanted the FBI, but he got the CIA, so that'll be fine. Mike Huckabee, ambassador to Israel, is a great pick. Elon Musk and Vivek. And did you see who they've added to this team? Elon, Vivek, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. What a group. And I will tell you, well, we'll get back to them. Susie Wiles, Lee Zeldin at EPA is a great pick. Elise Stefanik, I think can do a good job at UN. Mike Waltz, the other Green Beret in Congress, is the National Security Advisor. Tom Homan is the last one I will talk about at the Border Czar. He's a real Border Czar guy. And if you don't know Tom, he's going to be about as different from the last Border Czar as you can get. What was I going to talk about?
Those 300,000 children.
I was going to talk about the Doge, Elon and Vivek, and now Marjorie. Folks, I think there's a lot of optimism there. But frankly, that's where we're going to see the pushback start, because there are unions in the federal government. There are unions and there are judges that side with the unions. So all I'm trying to tell you is the happy dance doesn't belong. We won. That was the happy dance time. But now we've got work to be done, and the work is going to be hard. We're going to need your help. We're going to need the help of probably the Supreme Court in some cases, because frankly, a lot of this is not doable simply with the force of nature that Donald Trump is, and he is a force of nature. But those two are going to find cuts. Now, let's get to spending, because I want them to find cuts that we can actually do. $2 trillion, I don't need $2 trillion, but we do need several hundred billion, and we need to start with the Inflation Reduction Act. There's like $800 billion there for green stuff that is not doable. So I want them to find every dollar they can. Why? Because I've got 5 imperatives that I gave my staff, starting with spending and debt. Okay, we're now 36, we've just recently, in the last couple of days, gone over $36 trillion in debt. Yeah. Don't worry about it, you can't understand $36 trillion in debt. It's a lot of money. But I will tell you, of the 5 imperatives that I see in the next Congress, the one that President Trump is weakest on is spending. He's going to be strong on the border. He's going to be strong on election integrity. He's going to be strong on the other issues. Spending is the one that he's the weakest on. So we are actually putting together a team of who I hope are adults to be able to go to Stephen Miller. I forgot to mention Stephen Miller. is Assistant to the President for Policy. Stephen Miller is a very strong personality. And I think he's the one that we're going to have to co-opt, and we're going to have to get his ear so that we can manage Trump on the spending, because while he is going to be strong in every other area, he doesn't mind spending money. And frankly, folks, we're going to have a two-pronged attack when it comes to that. We're going to have to cut, and we're going to have to get some pro-growth policies. So the question that Mark asked me to cover is, where do we go from here? Now that we've covered the results, we have a rare opportunity to restore power to the people, to the states, and to the Congress itself. Congress is Article 1 of the Constitution. The presidency is Article 2. The judiciary is Article 3. Why are we 1? Because they want to have the power in your elected officials that are closest to you. Now, the senators, I know the 17th Amendment took them out of the states and put them, they're as closest thing that we have is to Roy. But the House is still responsible to you. And we have got to claw that power back. And I will tell you, one of the things that's going to help us is the Chevron deference case that the Supreme Court decided probably 3 or 4 months ago now. Folks, that will be our greatest tool. There are others, the Administrative Procedures Act, the Congressional Review Act, but the Chevron deference overturned by the Supreme Court is the most important tool we will have. Because frankly, for 50 years, the departments and agencies could write whatever rule they wanted to, and the courts gave deference to their rule, not to the black and white law passed by Congress and signed by the President, not to the law, but to the rules that they wrote. That's a vitally important new issue that we have to work with. So where do we go from here? We have got to reestablish U.S. credibility around the world. We've got to reestablish the national border. We've got to reestablish our deterrence in military, because right now we measure our guided missiles in terms of days, not weeks, not months, days. And eventually we have to get pro-growth policies and cut spending. Did I mention the border? I think Trump will be very strong on the border from day one. So where do we go from here? Internationally, I think Trump has got to spend some time. He's not inclined to international work. He's just not inclined to that. But we have got to reestablish our credibility. Are y'all following what's happening in Ukraine and Russia right now? Have you followed the last 3 days? I don't know if y'all have seen the letter that I wrote to the president, but I basically asked what the world is doing, and you have got to stop, because this is, many of you may have read the book Groupthink back in the day, in the 70s or 80s, Groupthink. And the guy analyzed 5 different issues that had gone on. The Cuban Missile Crisis was one of them. We could be in a Cuban Missile Crisis environment today. First use of an ICBM, it might have been a medium range, but we'll call it an ICBM, the SR-26 by Russia into Ukraine. That was a major escalation, folks, and a major message. And now Great Britain and France have let their Storm Shadow, what's France's, Sledge or something, I forgot France's name, along with our ATACMS be fired deep into Russia. This is a moment that the escalation may get out of hand if there is a miscalculation. I hope this doesn't happen. I don't think Putin really wants World War III. He just has to get to Trump being in office. The problem is Trump cannot go to him and say, hey, Putin, I want to talk to you. That's a federal felony. If he goes to him and says, I want to sit down with you, and if he does it when Biden's in office, the DOJ would immediately tell Trump, you're indicted again. So he's got to be real careful how he approaches this until January the 20th. But we've got to do that. And I will tell you, let's get to the near term. We only have this FY25. It started on 1 October, and where are we? November the 22nd or something? 21st. So we're into the fiscal year. We've only funded the fiscal year till December the 20th. So we've got most of the year to fund. Now, my brother is that we fund it through about March, give Trump time to get his feet on the ground, get some people confirmed, and then he'll have say-so over 7 or 8 months. I don't know that Trump don't want to go and just say, take care of FY25, I'll start FY26, which we're already working on. The budget committee's already working on. But folks, if we do a long-term CR, it's going to continue the Pelosi policies, and who knows what spending is going to be in it. Who knows what spending? Because frankly, the people who lost their elections, lost their primaries, resigned, for whatever reason, they have no skin in the game anymore. They could care less what you spend because they have no skin in the game. So watch that over December the 20th. Because not only do we have that coming up, we've got the debt ceiling increase. Will come in the first couple of months, depending on what date they set, the first couple of months of the year. So spending and all of these financial things are still, and I know y'all want to focus on border, y'all want to focus on Ukraine, you want to focus on Gaza. I got all of that. But frankly, we will set the tone in the next few months. The December, maybe March for the debt ceiling increase. We will set the tone for your tax rates and what you're going to be charged in the future, and more so, what your kids are going to be charged in the future. Because it's not really us, it's what we're putting on the backs of our kids. So that is also vitally important. Let me just close before I take questions, and I prefer questions. Trump is going to go hard. Trump knows that he's only got 2 years. After 2 years, somebody's going to be campaigning in his own party, somebody's going to be campaigning in the Democrat Party. He is going to be seen as a lame duck. He can't run again, so he must do everything he can in the next 2 years, period. Which means we don't have a lot of time. Not only did Bannon give a great performance last night, but the day before, Stephen Moore, who you may know, the economist Stephen Moore, he was talking to the Republican Study Committee, and he was in full war mode, but on spending. He said, you guys, and he's talking to congressmen, you guys must get spending under control because all spending is supposed to start in the House. He said, you have to get it under control because we've already seen the first break in the financial system of the United States. About a month ago, the Fed lowered the target rate. Remember that? 50 basis points, if I remember right. Yeah. So what happened to the interest rate? It went up, which means people, even though they lowered the target rate, if they buy a U.S. Treasury bond, they want more money for the risk that they think they're taking. Taking risk with a U.S. Treasury bond, that's supposed to be the foundation of all international finance. By the way, did you see that China is issuing dollar-denominated bonds somewhere? I've forgotten which country it is. China. So they think that people will buy dollar-denominated bonds elsewhere because they have less risk. That's the danger we're in the world as a whole with our financial system and all of our debt. By the way, we just crossed $1 trillion in payment on our national debt recently. $1 trillion a year. To put that in perspective, we spend overall, everything all in, about $7 trillion. We're spending 1/7 of everything we spend on interest in the national debt. Let's go back to Elon and Vivek, as long as I'm being real positive with you here. 85% of our budget is mandatory. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, now SNAP, okay? Over here on the discretionary side, it's about 15-17% of the whole budget. That's all Elon has to work with until we grow a backbone and say we're going to talk about mandatory spending as well. And I think illegal health care would be a great place to start. But Elon is going to learn real quick that you can't mess with mandatory without Congress being involved. So folks, yes, we won the election. Yes, we have the trifecta. Yes, we have a majority in both the Senate and the House, and we've got a strong leader in the White House. But folks, you have not seen the fight yet. It has not started. It will be brutal. It will be brutal. Because the establishment has made great strides since 2009. They basically have almost destroyed our constitutional republic, and they won't want to give it back. Back to life. They won't want to give it back. We're going to need you to stay strong in the fight. Because when we, and let me give you an example. Tom Holman is going to find a house somewhere on the border. And it's going to have sex trafficking going on. It's going to have drug sales going on. It's going to have every bad thing you can think of going on. There will be a child in that house. And when he raids it, and when he takes people and he starts to deport, what do you think the mainstream media is going to show you? They're going to show you the child. Guarantee it. I voted against the bill. It's not important what the bill was, and most of the Republicans voted for it. And I basically said, guys, you have to read the bill. You have to know what you're voting on, rather than the headline, which is for veterans. I'm on the VA committee, folks, and I voted against it because of what was in the bill. And I plead with you to do the same thing in the next 2 years. Try to find out what's going on behind the scenes. Not just the headline that some child got raided by the Border Patrol and they're going to deport this child who has no say-so on it. You know, why are we doing this? The fact that they took the drug dealers down, the fact that they rescued 5 women from sex trafficking will make no difference. It'll be the child. So I just encourage you, stay in the fight with us. We are all in this fight. Y'all have done your job. You have elected a trifecta. The voters have done your job. Now it's up to us to produce. We have to produce. We're going to have you stand with us if we're going to do it, because the counterattack, let me tell you, the counterattack is always harder than the attack. You have to be ready. With that, I'd take questions. We okay with that?
Well, so on the military, there's several articles, or 3, that they're going to request the resignation and retirement of some 20 or 30 upper staff of the Army, whatever. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, who was it that did that before? Yes, they are. And this is actually very positive, folks, because it's American tradition that every time a real war comes along, we have to fire all the political generals and bring out, oh, it was George C. Marshall. Had his little black book from the Louisiana maneuvers before World War II. That's how he knew Eisenhower. So they had to fire all the guys that were too old, too out of touch, and bringing these young guys to fight World War II. It has been done before, and it needs to be done today, because let me tell you, once you get certainly to 3 and 4 stars, it is only political. It has nothing to do with how good of a soldier you are. So yes, I'm looking forward to that, and I think it's necessary, and it's doable. Legally doable, that's not hard.
Speaking on the budget and spending, recently came out that Pentagon failed another audit, $800-something billion. Do you have any insight into that? What's going on there?
Yeah, it's their 7th straight, but frankly, folks, my opinion is that the DOD does not want to do an audit. Because if they do an audit and it's a true audit, you're going to find out what they're spending money on. And I don't think they want you to know that. So I think we're going to have to force an audit and not say it's a year-long audit. It's an audit until we get it audited. And I think that's what we're going to have to do. Because frankly, Ukraine is, and I'll get to my point, Ukraine is innovating in real time. They send out drones, they come back, they innovate, they say what went wrong, where did they get shot, what do we need to do different, and then they send them out again. SpaceX, I was down at SpaceX in South Texas a couple of weeks ago. You know what they say? They say we want to fail fast. What does that mean, fail fast? Just give your money away? No, they learn iteratively. They send up a rocket and immediately they say what went wrong. If you notice before this last launch last week, Elon put out a list of about 5 things they were going to measure. So they've got measurements, but they want to send them up and fail fast. Now, the big 6 defense contractors, of which I have 2, L3 Harris and Raytheon, they don't want to change. They're making money with their legacy systems. I'm not sure the legacy systems are what we need for the next war, but they're happy. And they control the appropriations process. So it's not just the audit. We've got to change the whole perspective into how do we innovate faster? How do we fail faster to get there? And we probably in Congress have got to say, you can accept more risk in order to iterate faster.
Is there anything to be done about people going to work at the companies that they were supposed to be overseeing? Like FDA going to Pfizer?
Supposedly there is a year that you're supposed to sit out anyway. I think it's routinely ignored. Yeah, going to work for the very people you were oversight of. It's a problem.
And security clearances, once you leave the government, can they stop that?
We should, yeah. I don't have my security clearances anymore. Why should anyone else?
Okay, this might be a dumb question, I might have missed it, but does Marjorie have to leave the Congress to get that job?
No.
She's just assigned to this?
She's just going to be part of the team.
Okay, so do you feel like with like education, Linda McMahon and Elise at UN, is their job to kind of deconstruct?
Well, let's take the UN first. Everybody wants to defund the UN. I mean, if I talk to this room, probably 95% of you would say just defund it, get out of it. But folks, the one thing we still have in the UN is our veto on the Security Council. It does stop some really bad stuff. Because the Security Council, you can vote, 195 nations in the world sit on the General Assembly, but the real decision makers are the Security Council. And we have a veto on that because we're one of the original members. So that's important to me. Should we deconstruct a lot of it? Absolutely. Why do poor countries send UN troops to be peacekeeping forces around the world? They get paid to do it. And then they destroy the culture because they don't understand the culture. Yeah, John.
Although it does not affect me, but I was wondering, President Trump talked about removing tax from Social Security. How realistic is that? Is there a possibility of getting that passed through Congress?
Well, he talked about removing the tax on retired people, on Social Security, on taxes, tips. He had a list of about 4 or 5, and I've talked to the Budget Committee, and there are some that might be possible. There are some that are just not realistic. So I don't know what to tell you. I know they're going to have to sort through all of that, but I will tell you, Trump's team thinks that tax cuts pay for themselves, and we don't need cuts in spending, because the tax cuts paying for themselves will be so pro-growth that we can pull out of it. Folks, we can't. We must cut spending where we can, and that's Elon and Vivek, and I think they're going to have to do well. And Marjorie. Don't forget Marjorie. Yeah.
I was going to ask your opinion. In the halls of Congress, behind the scenes, who do you and all the other congressmen believe are calling the shots these days? Because Biden certainly is not, and Kamala's in Hawaii. Who's calling the shot? Who is running our government?
For many months now, I have thought it is the Secretary of State Blinken and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. I think those are the two that are calling the shots. It's not the SecDef. I know it's not the SecDef. It's probably Sec State and National Security Advisor, Anthony Blinken and Jake Sullivan. That's my guess. Yeah.
So Colonel Douglas McGregor had put out basically an op-ed, not far off from what was already mentioned, something to the number of 44 four-star generals and he was relating that back in World War II, we operated with like 5 or 6. And his thesis was we could get rid of 80% of them, be so much better off, and probably go on down the line, giving them their retirement that they've earned. Is that something you would go along with as a realistic option?
Absolutely. The number of generals we had in World War II with 200 divisions is about the same number of generals we have today with 2 divisions. Actually, 4 total, 6 total, whatever they count in terms of reserves and National Guard as well. There is no comparison. Absolutely. And what that does, it evolves to our brigadier generals today are making decisions that captains used to make, because that's all they have to do. No, we need a general officer to make executive level decisions. Today they don't have to. Yes, sir, you've tried.
What do you see as a forcing function on Congress to address the mandatory portion of the budget? Or is it going to just have to, the market going to have to become so bad that then they react?
I think that
manufacturing F-16 Advance and also F-35. Okay, do you know how much it costs each piece?
Oh, I think the F-35s are in the order of 110 million. The F-16s are on the order of.
It's Advance.
I'm sorry?
Advance, F-16 Advance. Do you know how much costs each piece?
For an F-16?
Yeah, not a normal F-16. It's a F-16 Advance. It's a better, maybe the best or better than F-16. So therefore they call F-16 Advance.
Well, look, every aircraft, you have the basic airframe, and it really depends on the black boxes you put in. Because the black boxes we use are not the black boxes we sell to our allies. Because there are some things that are not exportable. So if you're talking about we don't make F-16s for the U.S. anymore. We make F-16s for export. So I'm not sure what they cost for export.
Okay, so actually my question for you is when a country like Taiwan, they pay they pay F-35 for 110 million each piece. Okay, they pay this price to purchase F-16 Advance. So do you think it makes sense?
Oh, you may be talking about the F-15.
No, F-16, 16 Advance.
Okay.
Yeah, they are just in Fort Worth, Rocky Mountain. Do you think that there's
well,
so
the F-16 got moved to the Carolinas. They make the F-35s in Fort Worth.
Okay.
So the F-16s are made in Carolina, and I don't know what they charge Taiwan for them. But he's brought up a good point. His broader point is a good point. Taiwan has paid for like $3.5 billion worth of equipment, and we've not gotten to them yet, and they're about to sign another contract for more. And let me just give you one example, the Harpoon missile that Taiwan wants desperately, the Harpoon missile. It would be great to stop any force coming across the strait. Well, we had to restart the Harpoon line, just like we had to restart the F-16 line. When we restarted the Harpoon line, Saudi Arabia paid for all the startup costs. So Saudi Arabia, why do they need Harpoons? Stand in front of Taiwan. It's in our national interest to make sure Taiwan got their Harpoons before Saudi Arabia, but because of the procurement laws, we can't do that right now. So your broad point is a good one.
Well,
yes, sir.
So we hear that President Trump will declare a national emergency and use the military to carry out the deportations. How practical is that? Could that be really done?
The question is posse comitatus, because posse comitatus says that you cannot use the military inside the United States for law enforcement. So I have no idea what the actual idea is. I've heard this, but I don't know what it means, because posse comitatus you can't overcome easily to use the military for law enforcement inside the United States. Now, if he's going to use them for transport, that may be possible. You know, military planes actually flying them out. I don't know what the discussion is, though. I just know the idea. So I can't answer your question, but I will tell you that posse comitatus is still very much the law of the land, and I don't think even President Trump would try to overturn that.
And National Guard comes under that too?
Well, it depends on how they're activated, because if National Guard is activated by the feds, they become federal troops under Title 10. If the governors activate the National Guard under Title 32, then they're state troops, and they are paid for by the state. So if he's going to use them, they would be activated under Article 10, and yes, they would be active duty soldiers at that time.
Thank you.
So,
A question on Taiwan. You mentioned that the defense weapon is sending to them. So how do we avoid that becomes another quagmire? Because China's been very clear they're going to take it with peacefully or forcefully by, I can't remember the year.
2027.
Which is still President Trump's presidency is going to be at that point. So how do we avoid that from becoming something sucking in our military?
It's a great question. The thing that challenges us is the vast distances across the Pacific. And we just took some transport ships out of active duty. We didn't mothball them. We just are not manning them. It's a great question. But under Biden, it's been a lot of strategic confusion because the stated policy of the United States today is that we provide Taiwan what they need to defend themselves. I think 4 times Biden said, we will defend Taiwan. There is a vast difference between providing them equipment to defend themselves and defending Taiwan. So I don't think anybody is really sure now what's happening. But I will tell you, we've been fairly aggressive in making alliances across the Pacific. The AUKUS, we've promised to sell Australia 2 submarines, Virginia-class submarines a year. We can't even make 2 Virginia-class submarines a year. We make 1.5 a year for ourselves and everyone else. So again, we're falling behind in giving Taiwan what they need. I don't know what it's going to look like if they try to take Taiwan. They don't want to destroy Taiwan. They want to simply bring it back into the fold. And I don't know what that means. They had such a good job with Hong Kong. They took it by treaty, and they guaranteed it for 50 years. And here, 20 years later, whatever it is, Hong Kong is basically looks like China. So they don't, and that turned the world against China in terms of Taiwan. Because the world says they may be doing the same, they may eventually do the same in Taiwan.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it
Yeah, because if they took Taiwan, the next will be Japan, and then Korea, followed up by Philippines and Vietnam. All of the Asian countries will be controlled by China, and the next they will go straight to the United States. So do you want that to happen?
No, we don't. Yes, sir.
Can you comment? This may be a rumor that when military officers were relieved of duty, when they refused the vaccine, if that indeed can be reversed?
It can be, and we are trying. I've started with the chaplains, because the chaplains, if anyone, had the right of conscience to not take the vaccine. So we have a bill, we're working, in fact, there's a lawsuit to try to restore their records, because chaplains were visibly, intentionally hurt, both with reassignment, demotion, anyway, they had bad notes in their records, so we are trying to get their records overturned. But there's a broader effort to what you're speaking to as well, because we think we ought to restore everyone, to include bringing them back on active duty. And then some people think they get back pay for all the pay they would have gotten. So I don't know where it's going to go, if it goes. But that's the thinking on it. And yes, we need to restore the records of those people that made it a matter of conscience not to take the COVID shot. Yeah, Mike?
Right now, government organizations like the CDC are allowed to invest in the companies they regulate. For example, CDC invests in all the pharmaceuticals. Are we going to deal with that issue? I mean, you cannot regulate somebody that you're invested in. That makes no sense.
There's a lot of that, and it also goes to the members of Congress. Yes. Just today, one of the members that oversees, I think, a healthcare organization purchased stock in it. So it's all across the government. Folks, big tech, big pharma, big media have got to be dealt with. Big tech, big pharma, big media have got to be dealt with. Because those are the ones that basically control a huge percentage of our economy. And I think Trump will take that on.
That would be fun to watch.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Is there any appetite in Washington for constitutional limits on government, on spending?
We have constitutional limits on government. No, they're not working at all.
You could dust off the 10th Amendment.
No, your question is good. I was making light of it because supposedly we do have, but I think you're talking about spending. I've asked a couple of people what we ought to be thinking about, but they all talk about increase. I'm not interested in an increase. I'm interested in at least flat. In fact, I'm interested in, the letter we're working on now is how do we get back to pre-COVID numbers? Folks, federal government spending went up 40% since COVID. 40% since COVID. How can we not go back at least, if not all the way back, because we've had a few years of inflation, at least part of the way back to pre-COVID numbers?
Was that mandatory or discretionary?
Total. Total government spending. Now, a lot of it is things, you bring up a good point, a lot of it is Social Security disability. We're paying people not to work who are able to work today. We're paying them not to work. That's where I would start. Because that's a mandatory Social Security disability, but they are not disabled. They were declared disabled because of COVID. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It's my first time here. My name is David Rodriguez.
Hello, David.
I just relocated here 10 months ago. And, I'm from San Antonio, but originally from Brownsville, Texas.
Okay, you're working your way north.
Yes, sir, I am. I'm a patient advocate for organ donation, for chronic kidney illness, and I'm glad that JFK is on board, especially when it comes to kidney disease and liver disease. I'm a 13-year kidney transplant recipient and a 2-year, almost 3 years liver transplant recipient. So I educate people what I didn't know then, I know now. And also involved in the national organizations like AAKP, American Association of Kidney Patients. And there's I don't know the name of the bill, but I do know the name. It's called the Living Donor Protection Act. It's been bounced around every single year. It's going to be this year, it's going to be this year. What that bill is that...
Do you have a question for me?
Yes, I do. I was going to ask you about...
I don't have any staff here, but if you'll give me your issue, I'll give it to the
absolutely.
staff.
But I just want to see in healthcare, do you run across anything like that helps the community as far as awareness of chronic kidney disease, anything like that, or liver disease? Because everything's bad now. I mean, it's just we need more emphasis on it.
I'll have the staff look at it for you.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Just don't forget.
Yes, sir.
So when President Trump tried to run for the third time by amending the Constitution, what are the chances?
For another term? Oh, no, he's limited to this term by the 26th Amendment, I think.
I got that, but he tried to attempt it because he got like a Senate and also the House. So he tried to change it.
Let's see, anybody with a first? No, second?
Yeah, a quick question. You mentioned the two names that are going to probably get a position. What was Byron Donalds? What was the other one?
Ronnie Jackson.
Okay, Ronnie Jackson.
Ronnie Jackson was the White House doctor for 4 presidents, I think, and he's in the House now with me. But I know he expects a position, and we'll see. It'll be something in healthcare. I know he won't go back to the White House.
Any idea on Byron Donalds? That guy's really great. Every time I see him on TV, he's really smart.
I don't. I don't. I know they're going to tap him.
Okay.
It's obvious they're going to tap him. I just don't know where.
Is voter integrity on the radar at all? It seems
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely. And you notice when I talk CR, I did not talk the SAVE Act, because the House passed the SAVE Act alone, a standalone. We didn't pass it on the first CR, the one that we're under now. The SAVE Act is real simple. You got to be a U.S. citizen if you're going to register to vote. I think it's less important to be on this next CR, because I think Trump's going to go SAVE Act plus. I think it's going to be one of Trump's primary issues is election integrity and all that that entails.
As a follow-up, is it possible to change the way the census is used so that only citizens count towards a portion?
I think that's going to be something that's going to happen. In fact, I think in the 2030 census, if Trump has his way and we have our way,
Do we have
will
another
be a
Republican president?
What is Congress going to do or try to get in through reconciliation?
It's a great question. Reconciliation right now is getting a lot of attention because reconciliation, the bottom line is you don't need 60 votes in the Senate to get it through. It's a simple majority. So it has to be budget related. In other words, you can't put new policy in on reconciliation. That's the simplest explanation. It must be budget related. Having said that, every attempt is going to be made to use budget to change policy through reconciliation. And we're talking about what can be included in that. So I'll leave it at that. But use budget to change policy, which is exactly what the House is supposed to do, is use the power of the purse to set policy. So we are going to set policy, but the first thing you've got to do is agree on a number with the Senate. That's probably going to be the hardest thing of everything in reconciliation. You agree on a budget number, and then you work policy through what you fund and don't fund, and you only have to have a simple majority in the Senate. That's the simplest explanation I can give you, but we don't know yet. To the bottom line, answer your question.
One of the things I think a lot of people are talking about, Trump's mentioned it, is term limits. And I want to know your opinion and what do you feel is an appropriate term limit for Congress on different houses?
First of all, let me be very clear. I have signed the term limit pledge, okay, for 3 terms, 6 years in the House. Now, having said that, there is not a snowball's chance that will pass. Because you're asking the very people who have been there. Hal Rogers in the House has been there for 44 years. Chuck Schumer in the Senate, how long? 36. McConnell, what? I don't know, 30-some, 40, I don't even know. You're asking the people who hold the power to limit themselves. And in government, that doesn't work very well. Now, Trump pushing it, I think that's one that he still could not get through. And frankly, the other side, I need to give you the other side of the coin argument. If you limit the elected officials, this bureaucracy that you hate so much, they're going to be even more powerful. Yes. The point is, what you need to do is elect more people that are conservative and willing to follow the Constitution. That's what we need. That's my answer.
We need term limits on the bureaucrats.
I think the president's about to.
Shut down. Anybody got a last question?
You still viewing questions?
Sure.
One more.
During the 2016 election, there was this, Hunter Biden laptop, and then the 50, intelligence community people signed this letter. My understanding is that 50 is morphed, metastasized or something, and is growing and becoming part of the deep state or something. Do you know anything about that? Or?
Well, they now have like 200 that opposed Trump recently, but I think those 51 may get their security clearances pulled, because those are the guys that the former heads of agencies and things, and apparently they still have security clearances. I don't know how. And they're talking about pulling their security clearances, which I think is the minimum that ought to happen.
One more bonus. Keith, you're so good. One more bonus. Sorry, Paul, let's get this gentleman right here.
It's kind of a strange question. Is it worth 30 minutes of your lowest level staffer's time for me to do a presentation on why I think the Green New Deal, which you mentioned, could be canceled because it's based on bad science?
We don't need to presentation.
I will get a bunch of people, I vote the next election, or you say, oh, you canceled our future, the Green New Deal.
It's not only bad science, it's bad policy. But I think repealing the Green New Deal piece by piece is probably going to happen, because I want to use the Green New Deal as to fund other things. I simply want to tear it down, fund other things.
But can I get 30 minutes of one of the lowest level staffers time?
Sure, sure.
How do I arrange that?
I'll give you my phone number, or
I'll
give you.
meeting request.
Okay, sure. Good enough? Yep. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Keith, very much.
Tell him to beat Navy.
Yeah, go on, beat Navy.
Normally get our parade of politicians, introduction of office holders and candidates. Tonight, is there anybody want to come up and do the Trump dance? I know we have to be careful. Just a little more dancing. Yes, yes, sir.
Before our drawing, we do have one other distinguished guest here tonight who snuck in, and that is our relatively new state Republican Party chairman, Abraham Phillips.
There it is. There it is. All right. So we'll take a few minutes and wrap up the evening with our normal door prize. Could be worth millions.
If you don't have a ticket, raise your hand. Let's get you a
Yeah, if
raffle
anybody doesn't have a
ticket.
ticket,
You want to
raise your hand real quick.
Got some ready to give out. Second most important time.
Yeah. Let's get, we have a young lady, one of these young ladies here to stand up. Okay. All right.
Lots of 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 2, 0.
20.
All not a million tonight, but dinner on us. Thank you very much, Charles. Thanks. I want to finish up the evening. Just announce that our next meeting next month will be, as always, the third Thursday every month. I hope I got this right, December 19th. It'll be our Christmas party, comedy, a visit from the big guy. We hope to see you all there. Thank you very much.
Check the schedule, and now that you're back to normal.
Oh, no.
You got on your own.